On today's episode of the Just Beat Ohio State podcast, we talk Jim Harbaugh and the NFL draft. We also answer your voicemail questions, throw out some unpopular opinions, and list our top 3 favorite TV shows. Last but not least, we welcome Michigan Twitter legend Meta Wooten Peace onto the show. Let's go.
Yep. And we back.
Welcome to the second episode of the Just Beat Ohio State podcast, unofficially sponsored by DoorDash. I'm your host today, Max, aka Wolverine Corner. Joining me today again is Ben Cooper, and we got both the UM versus everyone guys, Jacob and Ryan. Ryan was unable to join us for episode 1, but we're glad he's here today. Speaking of UM versus everyone, those guys had an interesting week on Twitter. Why don't you tell us about that?
We all probably know about the recent NCAA announcement. They're probably going to make a rule allowing athletes to make money off of their likeness. I woke up to this news. I just thought of something. I was like, it was like when Michigan still hasn't beaten Ohio State, but NCAA for football 21 has come out. I was like, fine, I'll do it myself. And it was a picture of Thanos saying that. So, that tweet took off, and former Clemson quarterback Tajh Boyd replied actually to that tweet with the laughing while crying emojis. That was pretty cool. Then later on that same day, I felt like stoking some flames and said that it was a picture of Penn State's uniforms. I was like, name something more overrated than these. And Penn State Twitter got a hold of that, and my mentions were blowing up for a couple hours. So that was quite fun.
All right. Well, what about Didn't you have a bunch of people calling you unconstitutional too in your mentions?
You mean you?
Wait, that was you. Oh, well, listen.
No,
I said it as a joke.
I know you.
But then I swear, then I think like 3 or 4 other people were like, "Oh, they don't care about your constitutional rights."
But it was like, it was an article that said that they may ban the Confederate flag in the Michigan State Capitol. I was like, I'm fine with that. So I just took a screenshot of that article and said, I'm fine with me. So some people got me. I was like, they were complaining about freedom of speech. I was like, that's not equivalent.
Yeah, so. It's too easy to get people riled up on Twitter. Also, going back to the Tajh Boyd thing, I remember I was reading your comments on that, and I saw his comment. I have never in the history of Twitter seen a more random comment than that. Number one, what the hell does Tajh Boyd even care about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry? And number two, how did he even find that tweet? That made zero sense to me.
Yeah, that was it made me wonder. I actually didn't see that he had commented until I think it was you who texted me, and I was like, look at this. And I was like, wait, is that Tajh Boyd? I was like, I know that name. I was like, what? So that was kind of...
So just per usual, the UM versus everyone guys, we're stirring stuff up on Twitter, just like always. But we got Mr. Ben Cooper had himself a good week as well. He hit 500 followers on Twitter. So, hey, that's a milestone. That's pretty impressive for only being active on Twitter for 3-4 weeks now?
I think it's about 3 weeks. Yeah. I mean, I've had my account for like 2 years, but honestly, I started it doing some 14-year-old YouTuber giveaways, and now I actually pretty active on it. It's pretty fun.
Nice. So yeah, go follow him. Ben, what's your at?
At the real B Coop. It's kind of crazy though. Every time I've been ordering DoorDash and like Domino's, the delivery dude is just always asking for my autograph.
I love it.
It's crazy. But
DoorDash. Yeah, DoorDash. If you're listening to this, just know we please sponsor the pod. We all want you to be a part of it. Anyways, we're just gonna dive right into it here. Listen, Tarik Black finally announced where he was going to be going, and which was Texas, which kind of everybody has been speculating for a while now. I just want to get everyone's take on that. Do you think it's a good fit? And most importantly, does this mean Texas is finally back?
No, Texas is not back. I think it's a good fit for him. I mean, I don't think he liked Ann Arbor that much. I don't know him personally, but just seemed like he wanted a fresh start. And after the beginning of his campaign at Michigan, everyone thought he's going straight to the league, and years later, it just doesn't look like that. And I think a fresh start could be good for him. Well, what do you think, Ryan?
I don't know if I really disagree with that. I think that he did like Michigan, but the thing is that he got really derailed by foot injuries. And I think that if he doesn't have those injuries, he becomes a much bigger part of the offense than he was in the last 2 years. But even though Donovan Peoples-Jones left for the draft this year, unsurprisingly, Nico Collins ended up coming back. And I think that he would have ended up being third fiddle behind both Nico Collins and Ronnie Bell. So, to be honest, I think that this is probably a good move for Tarik, and I'm glad that he's going to get some good playing time in a Power 5 school.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But like when it comes to Texas being back, define back, because like they're not like what Texas was under Charlie Strong, where they were barely making bowl games if they made the bowl game. Like now Texas is, they're kind of like sort of like what the level Michigan is at. They're kind of like middling top 25, somewhere around like the 14, 15 range, but they're not really playoff type teams. So, with Texas being back, like Vince Young, Texas, that's probably when I'd say they're officially back. But yeah, I think Texas is a great place for Tarik. I mean, he chose it for a reason, obviously. So, I wish him all the luck in Texas. And yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree there. I think the fit is interesting. I think football-wise, it's a great fit for Tarik Black. He finally is going to someplace that has a pretty darn good quarterback. Not trying to throw shade at Patterson here, but Sam Ehlinger is he's just on a different level. He's had an up and down career, but he's going to be nuts next year. And I've always been self-admittedly kind of a low-key Texas fan, as much as that might disgust some of you. Hey, listen. I've
2 days ago, or like always.
No, like I've always rooted for Texas for some reason. I have zero justification for that, other than I mean, do you guys have any just weird teams that you just root for no reason? Well, anyways, I do with Texas, and I think it's an interesting fit for the team. Texas has kind of had some locker room problems in the past. I'm not trying to call Tarik Black a locker room problem, but he could be. And but football wise, I think it's going to be a great fit for him. And I think he's going to – we all know how talented he is. He could have put up monster numbers at Michigan had he been healthy and had he been a part of a team with a little bit better quarterback play. So I think it's going to be a good fit, and we definitely all wish him the best. We're going to shift gears here to a segment that has been requested probably 100 times. It's a topic Michigan fans discuss on the daily, and most people have strong opinions about on both sides. So let me ask everybody. Is Jim Harbaugh overrated, and has he underachieved at Michigan? Ben, start us off.
To start off with the second part of the question, I think he has underachieved. I mean, obviously we hyped him up a lot, but I mean, what has he done under the program? If you look at his accolades, not much. Is he overrated? I think honestly no. I think he shouldn't be in the national spotlight as much as he is, but I don't think Michigan fans overrate him, and I think the national media likes to tear him apart. So I don't think he's overrated, but he is definitely underachieved. What do you think, Jacob?
I think, yeah, like when it comes to the overrated part, you'll see on the media, like most overrated coaches in college football, and it's always Jim Harbaugh. Like it's a common consensus now that Jim Harbaugh is overrated. When everyone calls something overrated, that thing is no longer overrated. Like when it comes to like his expectations coming into Michigan, yeah, he was definitely hyped up too much. But now, I mean, he still helped the program out a lot. I mean, Brady Hoke was just, I mean, he was inheriting a program that just went 5-7, But I mean, he's now made them into a respectable team. It's just he can't get it done against the Buckeyes, which is what you need to do. But there's really not much he really can do against the Buckeyes because this is like the top. This is the best. This is like the best time ever for the Buckeyes, and almost no Michigan team is going to compete against them. So it's hard to blame Harbaugh, but I do think he could have done a better job. But he still helped out the program a good amount, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Harbaugh has definitely not lived up to the hype that we had for him coming into the program. but he is by no means a bad coach. So, like, the media sometimes makes him out to be a bad coach because of like the amount of hype he had coming into the program, but he is nowhere close to that. I mean, he's produced a lot of NFL talent, and even like in the last year, we have Cesar Ruiz, Josh Uche, Khalil Hudson, and people like Lavert Hill, who even went undrafted. But he has never really recruited bad. Like, all of his classes are top 20 in the nation, and he just can't win the big games. And as Jacob said, Ohio State is at one of its best places right now. They have newly acquired quarterback last year, Justin Fields, who looks to be a Heisman frontrunner, and just like their offense and defense are as good as ever. Like, it's a really hard team to beat. So he has the talent. It's more about not really choking the big games, as which I guess you can say that Don Brown does more of that, but you just got to be able to make your team able to win the big games. And that's his only downfall right now. Other than that, I think he's an incredible coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is such a complex question. A lot of questions have straightforward answers. You can look at facts, you can look at opinions, and you can come to a conclusion. There's a reason why the fan base is so divided on this question. It's just because it's incredibly complex and there's no easy answer. When you look at the fact that Harbaugh, I'm not gonna. You can go read the Scott Bell article that he posted. That basically the state of Michigan football, and there's some incredible charts and graphs and numbers in there. I'm not going to dig too deep into all those numbers, but Michigan has won a lot of games under Jim Harbaugh. With that said, with the amount of games that he has won, I think there has been some issues with that. The recruiting, in my opinion, has not taken the proper step up with the amount of games that he has won. He's recruiting on virtually the same level as Brady Hoke did. Brady Hoke didn't win very many games at Michigan after that first season. So for Harbaugh to recruit on the same level as Brady Hoke, I think that's a little bit disappointing. I'm not sure if that falls on him or his assistants. And if you look at it, Ryan mentioned that, he's had top 20 classes. He even had a top 5 class, but he's been right around that 10 to 12 range as an average. It's easy for Michigan to recruit in that range. They're still not landing the top 100 guys that they need to land. Their classes are typically bigger than other schools. They do have more attrition, so that typically means their classes are going to rank a little bit higher. So I think recruiting as a whole has been a little bit disappointing. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all, but I think it could and it should be a little bit better. I also hear so many people say that it's just an Ohio State problem. I think that is true to a point, but it's not completely factual. Ohio State's not the reason that Michigan got destroyed by Wisconsin last year. They're not the reason that Michigan has struggled to play on the road, right? Ohio State's not the reason that Michigan lost that game to Iowa a couple years ago that they needed to win. I don't think it's just an Ohio State problem. It is a road game problem, and I do think that as a program they have some big game woes. They win their fair share, but as a whole, I think Jim Harbaugh has been good. Michigan fans expected better, and I think going forward, I think this is such a big year for Harbaugh, and I think with Dylan McCaffrey, who in my opinion will start this year, I think he's going to be that guy that finally gives Michigan the proper moxie at the quarterback position and could potentially put them over the edge.
Let me add one more thing about Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh is good at not getting upset. I think the only real time he's been upset was that Iowa game, night game. But that's a night game, and those are infamous for upsets. I mean,
For sure.
Ohio State recently got upset there. But he wins the games he should. But once you get to the games that aren't built-in wins, and they're toss-ups, you don't really have a clue who's really going to win. I consistently find myself disappointed with the result, and that's something he obviously needs to work on and win more.
I agree, Jacob. And one thing about that too is when you say he wins the game, he wins the games he should. That's very important. We don't like, we could go back to the days about, losing to Toledo and teams like that. Thank God we're not at that point. But when Harbaugh faces teams with, similar competition, he doesn't win as many of them as he should. And I think that has a lot to do with assistant coaches. I think he has fixed the problem on offense. I think he's got a really good offense coordinator in there now. And I think he needs to fix the problem on defense. And once he has, go look at Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. Yes, they all have great head coaches, but they have elite assistant coaches as well. And I think Harbaugh is still kind of searching for the right staff. Anyone have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, and I agree with Max, but also the fact that one thing that I've noticed in the past few years is that even though Harbaugh is generally pretty good at developing talent, his 5-star talent often does not develop as much as we think it should. Like, for example, Shea Patterson was a 5-star, and coming out of Ole Miss, he looked great. He looked like a stud. And then he came to Michigan, and his numbers went a little bit up his first year here, and then he came back for senior year, and they went back down. And if you look at people like Rashawn Gary had so much hype coming out of high school. He was a 5-star, great. He was a great recruit, and then he comes to Michigan and he underperforms. And you can say one more thing about DPJ. Donovan Peoples-Jones was also a 5-star. You look at him, and he's like one of the most athletic people you can see on the football field for Michigan last year. But the thing is that talent only got like 350, 400 yards receiving. So I don't know if it's the system, and I don't know if it's the development, but something about this just doesn't look right to me with the 5 stars.
Yeah, I'll comment a little bit on that. I think when you want to break down the 5 stars, you really have to take everything by a case-by-case basis. So I'll play a little devil's advocate here. I think Rashawn Gary probably needed to play inside more. I think that would have helped him out. All the reports and all the rumors basically said that he did not want to play inside more. He wanted to play on the outside, on the edge, which helps stats and it helps his draft stock. But I don't think Rashawn Gary's probably played in the right position. DPJ battled a couple injuries, and DPJ was there for 2 seasons of an offense that I don't think fit his game. So I'm not going to say that the development isn't perfect or that it is perfect, but I do think that those cases need to be kind of looked at individually before we could say,
here's another thing. Like, he's actually, like, it's not, Josh Uche was a 3-star. I believe Devin Bush was a 3-star.
For sure.
Devin Bush was a top 10 pick. He turned a 3-star into a top 10 pick. He's not exactly this guy that can't make NFL talent. He just got 10 players drafted. And that's not even including Livert Hill, who people thought got snubbed from the draft. Shea definitely wasn't snubbed. Everyone saw that coming, but he can develop players, but he can't develop. I guess he has they're usually day 2, day 3 guys. Well, you see Ohio State have like 3-4 guys go pretty early, and it's just that's a problem with the talent. Jim Harbaugh is good at developing players. Ohio State is great at developing players. That's the main problem, I think.
For sure. And I think that kind of what you just said can kind of recap this whole segment. I think all of us here are Jim Harbaugh fans. Nobody wants to see him step away. Nobody wants to see him get fired. He's been good. We all agree that he's been good, but I think we can all agree that we probably expected more at this point. Is that pretty accurate, you guys think?
Yeah.
For sure. Anyone else have anything to add?
Mm-mm.
No.
All right. Kind of along the same lines, I also wanted to touch on the NFL draft as well. I just want to ask you guys all, what stood out to you? Shea, DPJ, Uche, what was basically your main Michigan takeaway from the draft?
So to me, my huge thing was that I was really surprised that Livert Hill did not get drafted. And like, this guy, Livert Hill, was arguably meaning Jeffrey Okudah, of course, but he was arguably the best corner in the Big Ten last year. His opponent's passer rating when targeting him was 23.9. That is incredibly low, and that led the Big Ten. And he also had 3 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. How he did not get drafted is just beyond me. This is just something that I did not see coming. I don't think anyone else really saw coming, but at least he found a home with the Chiefs, who in the past have needed help with their secondary, having shipped off Marcus Peters. but I think that I think that Levert Hill going undrafted was just, it was just awe. I was just in awe. I'm like, how is this guy not drafted? He's shown that he's one of the best corners in this entire, like, sometimes even in the nation. He's been all Big Ten several times. I just don't really get how he wasn't drafted.
I agree with that, obviously, but I was going to more talk about the offensive linemen. 4 offensive linemen drafted. It's astounding, in my opinion. It didn't. If you would have just watched the games, it didn't honestly, in my eyes, seem like that last year. We weren't dominating up front, and obviously these guys are really talented. And but yeah, it's kind of concerning to me that even with 4 offensive linemen on the same team last year, the numbers didn't show, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, that might not exactly, that's not on the O line, I'd say. I mean, they all got drafted for a reason, but
No,
I
yeah,
remember when we played Ohio State, some guy looked back at film. It was like Hassan Haskins. It was like a 4th and 1. He got stopped. He decided, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, he went one way. He had this big hole. It would have been like a 80-yard touchdown if he went through that hole. But, he missed it and he got stopped and gives Ohio State the ball. And it was just like, that was probably maybe on the running backs. The running backs might have not been that great last year. But, like, another big thing I took away is, like, the talent gap. I mean, I already kind of said this, but the talent gap between OSU and Michigan is big, but it's not that big because they had the same amount of guys picked. Ohio State tended to have them earlier than Michigan, though. I mean, I think Michigan had 5 guys go in the 6th round. Like, it was some high number for the 6th round or 5th round. Like, can you name one Michigan player that was drafted in the 6th round that worked out? Because I can't. Definitely not.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
No,
you mean like the second best quarterback of all time?
Who?
Oh,
the second best quarterback of all time?
Oh,
Who?
boy.
Joe Montana didn't go to Michigan.
I was talking about Thomas, Mr. Brady.
No, he's the GOAT.
No, I'm playing. I was just joking. I don't want to get fined.
I don't even know where Joe Montana went to college.
Hey Ben, way to piss off all of our listeners, man. Really good job
there. Great job.
I'm a big Kirk Cousins fan myself.
Like, again, but not every 6th rounder is going to become Tom Brady. Like, a lot of them aren't even going to make a roster. Like, 1st rounders are going to make the roster. We need more guys going in the 1st and 2nd round in order to convince recruits, look, we can make guys into this. Come to Michigan. We're better at this than them. Like, we need more people. Like, the draft was like perfect for Ohio State's recruiting because, like, look,
oh my God,
the top 3 picks all came here at one point. I mean, yes, Burrow ended up going to LSU, and that's where he flourished. But he still considers himself a Buckeye.
Ohio State didn't need any more help.
Okuda, Buckeye. Arnett, Buckeye. I mean, he wasn't expected to go in the 1st round, but he was still picked in the 1st round regardless or not because it's the Raiders. But like, I mean, the Raiders are known to not give a crap about draft boards. They just do what they want. But they had 4 former players go in the 1st round, 3 of them in the top 3. So it's just like,
yeah. And if you're paying attention to Ohio State's 2021 class right now, they don't really need any more help on that, on the recruiting front. So that was just an extra bonus for them.
I saw this one thing. If you took their 2021 class and put them in the 2020 class, it would be like the number 6 class in the nation. And they're like, what are we? A year? How long are we from signing day?
Like 10 months away from
a very long time. So it's just.
Man. Jacob, I agree with everything you said about your takeaways. I did want to say just about the offensive line thing that Ben was talking about really quickly. I agree with you. To the naked eye, it probably didn't look like, oh crap, that Michigan offensive line was dominating last year, but they didn't run the ball as much as they probably should have. And I'm not trying to, I'm not a play caller, right? I'm not trying to act like I know what's best, but they definitely weren't a pound team like they were in previous years. And then another thing is they obviously had a quarterback with extremely happy feet. Didn't do the offensive line any favors when he bailed out of the pocket after 2 seconds on every single drop back. Again, not trying to throw shade at Shea Patterson, but it is what it is. We all watched it last year. So my biggest takeaway was really two things. First one was Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't know if I've ever been shocked at a player falling more in a draft than I was with DPJ. And admittedly, I'm a huge Cleveland Browns fan, so I was so happy. I wanted the Browns to take him in the 3rd round, and then in the 4th, and then in the 5th. And clearly they knew what they were doing. But that's a athletic ass receiver with 4.4 speed. He showed out at the combine. Sure,
slid, man.
Yeah, sure. His stats weren't great in his 3 years at Michigan, but how a 5-star with incredible, measurements and measurables, I should say, didn't get drafted any higher than that is I was so surprised. I could not believe he fell. And there were a lot of rumors about why he fell. I'm not going to get into those. I don't know what's true, what's not true, but that was extremely surprising. And then lastly, Shea Patterson. I'm not going to say I'm surprised that he didn't get drafted. I still thought somebody was going to pick him up. I really did thought that he would get drafted in the 6th or the 7th round based on, just the fact that he was such a high recruit out of high school. And plus there were worse quarterbacks than Shea Patterson that was picked.
Brian Lewerke got signed before him.
Yeah. So even if you weren't surprised that Shea Patterson didn't get drafted, the fact that man still is not signed to a team, it is absolutely shocking. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, Michigan fans can throw as much shade his direction as they want, but he was not a bad quarterback for Michigan. No Michigan fan can honestly sit down and say that guy was a bad quarterback. And when you have guys like Tommy Stevens getting drafted and guys like Brian Lewerke signing, I don't know the off-field issues that Shea has, but there must be some. That's the only explanation. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We can't really speak on any off-field issues because we don't really know of any. But here's some interesting stats that I looked up. So Shea had a very underwhelming completion percentage. He had 56.2%, right? And he also passed for 3,000 yards, which is no small feat. But obviously, you'd want it to be much more because he's a Big Ten quarterback playing with 3 great receivers.
Sure.
Like, actually 4.
4, yeah.
4 great receivers that he had so many weapons all over the field. Now, the thing, what I'm trying to get to here is that he also had a 23-8 touchdown interception ratio and 139.4 passer rating. Now, the thing is that when you compare these to Brian Lewerke's stats, they're somewhat close, but definitely Shea probably should have been signed before Lewerke. So there might be something going on there. Lewerke's stats were about
also
60% completion.
If you can't know, but if they switch, I'm not saying Lewerke's better, but it's also like if you just look at those numbers, if they switch positions, you don't know that Lewerke wouldn't have better stats than Shea did.
For sure, but I'll chime in on that really quick. Brian Lewerke's got a much more NFL body. He's bigger, he's taller, and I don't. Again, I'm not speaking to off the field issues because I don't know, but clearly NFL teams thought that he was the type of player that they want in their organization, and that Shea Patterson was not. So we can break down the stats all day long. Anybody who watched the 2 quarterbacks play probably can come to the conclusion of Shea Patterson was a better quarterback. But if you're not projected as a franchise quarterback and one team wants you as a practice squad quarterback or a backup, they're not going to bring someone that they think is going to be a cancer to the team or, is going to bring off the field issues. And it just really seems like there was something there with Patterson that scared every single team away.
Well, you brought up that Lewerke had similar stats to Shea. I'm biased, but most people can't agree that Shea was better than Lewerke. But Shea should have done a lot more with the talent he had. He had a great offensive line. He just kept, he kept wanting to run around for no good reason and missed these open receivers by 10 yards. But it was just there's so many there were so many times you just watch Shea and be like, what are you doing? Like it was just like what are you seeing here? And it's
Yep.
just,
All right,
like,
we've beaten the dead horse on the draft on Shea Patterson. We're gonna move on here. This is my favorite segment of the podcast. I thought it went so well in episode 1. This is voicemail questions. We had a ton of people submit questions this week, so if we didn't get to your question, don't worry. We're gonna try to throw those ones on the podcast for next week. So without further ado, here is our first question.
Hello, this is Zach from Chicago, Illinois. You can follow me on Twitter at U of M Hoops. And I was wondering what role you think each of the freshmen are going to play on the team next year.
Thank you, Zach from Chicago, for that question. Guys, let's just go freshman by freshman, and we'll all say how we think or what their role will be on the team next year. Let's start with Zeb Jackson.
I can start us off. I think, as with any freshman, usually, I don't think he's going to start off getting real minutes. Honestly, obviously, if we play really bad teams, he'll get in the game. But I couldn't see him beginning the year against real teams getting legitimate playing time. Maybe during the end of the year, if injuries play a role, I could see him getting more legitimate playing time. But at least at the start of the year, I don't see him getting much PT. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, like the story for most freshmen you're gonna have is they're not gonna get much playing time to start, but once the season progresses, they get more playing time and experience and a hand of the offense better, or in the defensive schemes. I think you'll be seeing, especially Zeb. I mean, or Zeb. I don't know how to say his name, but just I think he'll get some solid minutes once you get into the back half of the season.
So I don't necessarily agree with him not getting significant minutes. I think that we're going to see a lot more of him than people think, because as people may know, David DeJulius just transferred, and I think that there's we're kind of shallow. Michigan's a little bit shallow at the point guard and shooting guard positions. So I think it's definitely possible that you're going to see Zeb Jackson getting like 15 minutes a game starting the season.
Oh,
So I don't think he's going to be sitting the bench the entire time. He's a solid recruit. He's a 4-star recruit, and I don't think he's going to be sitting the bench like as much as some people think he is. I think he's going to be a solid backup and be 15 minutes a game at like either point guard or shooting guard.
So do you see him playing like more than Bajema or Nunez? Like how would that playing time work?
Yes, I actually do see him playing more than Bajema. Or Nunez. I don't know who's going to win that job, Bajema or Nunez, but I know that Zeb Jackson is most likely going to take some of those minutes and go maybe 15 minutes and maybe like 5 to 10 minutes for either Bajema or Nunez, whoever wins that job. But it's in my opinion that Zeb is probably going to end up being the backup point guard behind Mike Smith, and that the shooting guard is going to be the thing that's up for grabs. And I don't think that they're going to get as many minutes as Zeb Jackson will.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to actually take that a step further. I agree with you way more than the other two. I think Zeb Jackson, look, when you bring in a freshman, it's all about, okay, are they ready to play? Are they not? And then where's really your team needs at? Michigan has a team need at the guard spot right now. We are thin there. Michigan did not land. I mean, they're still trying to, in my opinion, they're still trying to bring in another shooting guard if they can. But as the roster sits right now, Zeb Jackson's in for big minutes, in my opinion. I think 15 would be on the low end, in my opinion. I think you're going to see him be 15 to 20 minutes right off the bat. I think he's going to be similar to what David DeJulius was last year, right? DeJulius could come in and play either guard spot. So can Zeb Jackson. He can play point. He can play shooting guard. He's a 6'3". He's really athletic. Wait till Michigan fans see how athletic he is. They're going to be surprised. So he's a combo guard. He can play either spot. And then when we start talking about Bajema and Nunez, I think Bajema's the real wild card there. Nunez, I think we kind of know what we can get from him, which is shooting when he's feeling good, when his stroke is good, but you're not going to get much defense. You're not going to get much playmaking out of him. So I think Zeb is, and plus I think Nunez and Bajema are both more kind of they're more of like a 3 than they are a 2, especially Bajima. I think you're going to see them play behind Franz more than necessarily you'll see them take minutes from Zeb, in my opinion. So yeah, I think right off the bat, Zeb Jackson is going to get a ton of minutes, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Let's tackle Jace Howard first. Ben, start us off with Jace.
I don't know how. I don't want to. I'm not being disrespectful to anyone. I don't see him getting legit PT without any injuries. If we're being quite honest. Yeah, I don't see it.
But, well,
what do you think, Jacob?
Well, I think I trust Howard, but I think you might see him get some playing time. Like, he's a coach's son. Jawad is probably going to subliminally give him some minutes whenever he legitimately can. But he's a legitimate Division I caliber player. He's a 3-star recruit. He's coming in. He's not gonna. He'll be one of the last people off the bench, probably. But I think he's gonna get a little bit of playing time. I think he could possibly, once he develops, I think he could eventually have a legitimate role on this team. Possibly start maybe once he becomes an upperclassman.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that take. That he's definitely. I think that he's going to end up starting when he becomes an upperclassman, develops more. But for now, I think that he's definitely going to be more of a depth piece his first year, especially with options in the front court like Franz Wagner and Isaiah Livers, and you got backups like Brandon Johns, and you have people who, like Max said, are more of like 3s, like Cole Bajema. So, and also, not to mention Terrence Williams. So I think he's gonna have to play hard to get minutes this year. But going forward, especially with Livers graduating next year and maybe Franz leaving, I think that there's a great chance that he gets more minutes each year, just not so much this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm sorry, I almost said transfer candidate. No, I mean redshirt candidate for Jace Howard. I think very good chance he's going to get redshirted year 1. That's not disrespecting him or his game. His position, Michigan is stacked at the 3 and the 4. He's a wing. Where is he going to play at the 3 right now? You're going to have Franz Wagner starting at the 3. Behind him, you're going to have Bajema. You're going to have Nunez. And then you're going to have Terrence Williams who can play the 3, and then you're going to have Livers who can play both the 3 and the 4. So it's hard to picture any minutes for Jace right now. Barring any injury, I definitely think he could be a red shirt candidate. So let's move on to, speaking of Terrence Williams, let's move on to Terrence.
I think he's definitely not going to be he'll definitely get more minutes in my opinion than Jace, but I couldn't see him. I can't see him playing that much, at least to begin the year. He's undersized. I mean, I see him being a legitimate starter in the future, but for now, I don't know. I don't know how well his game will translate to the college level, at least right at the start. I think with a little development, he will be a great upperclassman. But for now, I think he's similar, in my opinion, to Zeb, where he won't get many minutes. He won't get many minutes at the start, and I don't see him playing that legitimate minutes, barring injuries throughout the year. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, so Terrence Williams is a baller. He is going to shock a lot of people, and you're going to see him on the floor a lot this year. And the reason I say that is because it's a lot easier to get on the floor when you can play multiple positions. If you don't know what kind of player Terrence Williams is, just picture Isaiah Livers coming in as a freshman, if you remember him back in his freshman year. Very similar body, very similar height, and a very similar game. However, I actually think Terrence Williams is more college ready than even Livers was. I think Livers was more of a sharpshooter his freshman year. Terrence Williams is a great shooter himself, but he's a little bit more physical than Livers was and a little bit more crafty around the basket. Terrence Williams should be able to back up the 3 spot. And then you'll be able to see him at the 4 as well. I know that 4 spot's crowded with Livers and Johns, but Williams should. That guy's good. Michigan fans are going to be very, very surprised, I think, about Terrence Williams and what kind of role that he can play as a true freshman.
Well, I think right now we're sort of just underestimating what type of class we have coming in. I mean, we're kind of like disillusioned by Josh Christopher and Isaiah Todd not coming. That we forget we're the number 8 class in the nation.
Yep.
We're the top one in the Big Ten. We have 3 of our 4 guys are top 100 players. 3 of the 4 freshmen. Like these guys, these are great players. These guys are gonna play. You have to play them. I mean, this is the new era of Michigan recruiting. We're not gonna hold on to these guys until they're upperclassmen. They'll let them lose. We're gonna try to get them going as soon as possible so they can put points up on the board. So
I kind of disagree with that point. I think when you have so many good players, you make the assumption that you're just going to play everyone and that we're going to play 11 guys per game. And I just don't think that's Juwan Howard's system. I think people are kind of thinking that it's going to be similar to Florida State in a sense where you play a lot of guys. And I mean, obviously on almost any other team, these guys would get legitimate playing time, maybe even start year one. But I just don't see on Michigan. I don't see where the minutes are coming from.
I'm going to disagree a little bit there. I think that Terrence Williams is exactly what Max said he was. He is an undersized power forward / small forward. And if we've seen what Isaiah Livers can do at the power forward spot, he's 6'7". Terrence Williams is only 1 inch shorter. He's 6'6". And when Juwan Howard wants to play small ball, I think he's gonna like play Terrence Williams a lot, especially off the bench. He is a great scorer, and to be honest, I think that if as the season goes on, depending on what Juwan wants to try and prioritize more, offense or defense / rebounding, I think that Terrence Williams might be able to take more minutes from Brandon Johns Jr. than we think. That's just my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that. Brandon Johns is also another wild card. We'll talk plenty of Brandon Johns in future podcasts, but Terrence Williams is going to, like I said, in my opinion, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Let's move on to the fourth freshman, which is Hunter Dickinson. And I'll just start off really quick. Hunter Dickinson, I think, if you listen to podcast number 1, I think he's going to start. I think he's going to start at the center spot to start the year. He's that good. He's crafty. His athleticism kind of scares people away. People don't think he's very athletic. However unathletic you might think he is, he makes it up with just being incredibly fundamental, and then just crafty around the basket. He's bigger than Austin Davis. He's more skilled than Austin Davis. I expect him to start from day one next season.
I mean, yeah, of all the players, I mean, Hunter's the top ranked guy coming in next year by a fair amount. But I mean, yeah, like with the athleticism thing, yeah, he's not the most athletic player, but it's not like Austin Davis is this athletic freak by any means.
Exactly.
Either. Like, I mean, he's definitely going to play. I think you'll see the mids be more split at the start, but yeah, I do believe once the year progresses, Hunter is going to have a more solidified starting role, and he's going to be balling. We're going to be yelling, "Give it to Hunter" on the post at the TV pretty early into the season. So,
yeah, I kind of agree. I think that Hunter Dickinson, I think he's definitely going to start right off the bat over Austin Davis. Austin Davis, do not get me wrong, he is a great player. He is a player that I think Michigan is lucky to have back for a 5th season. But I don't think that he's going to be able to beat Hunter Dickinson out for this spot. Because Dickinson is 7'2", he's an absolute monster, and he's good around the rim, he's good in the post, and he's also got a pretty good mid-range shot from what I've seen. So I think that is something that Juwan Howard is going to like to utilize and often, especially as the season goes on. I think it's going to be fun to watch him in this first season.
I mean, I think everyone can agree. I think he's going to play more than any other freshman this season. But yeah, I don't see him starting at the beginning of the year. I think Davis will get that nod as a 5th year. But he will definitely start, in my opinion, near the midway point of the season and to finish up the year. But I think Howard will give Davis the nod at the beginning, but it won't last too long.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say on Hunter Dickinson really quick is I think he's much more of a Juwan type center than John Teskey, and I think people are going to see that next year. I think he's going to be a much better rebounder than Teskey, and he's also going to be much more reliable to throw it in the post and just let him get you a bucket. So if you guys remember right, how we started off every goddamn game this year with that post touch to John Teskey, I think we're going to see that a lot more next season, but we're probably going to see Hunter actually make his hook shots, hopefully. So with that being said, that was a really long answer. So Zach from Chicago, you're welcome for the in-depth analysis there. Let's move on to question number 2.
Hi, my name's Rick Dunaway. I'm from Florida. I have a question. So, you think you break all the news when I live in a 200 square foot house? Everyone's coughing around me. My question to you is, Jim Harbaugh is going to retire after this. Everyone knows that already. I'm breaking some news here. Donald Trump is the next president and the next football coach of the University of Michigan. You heard it here first. My question to you, can you disprove that? I need solid proof that that won't happen. What is your proof?
So much, Rick from Florida, for that question. Does anybody have any comments on that, Ryan?
No comment.
Jacob?
Yeah. I mean, like Harbaugh leaving. I think we've heard those rumors ever since he got like Harbaugh's going to the NFL. Harbaugh's going to the NFL. Look at this. Look at this. It's never happened.
Okay, but
So-
this is coming from Rick from Florida. This is a Rick bomb. So are you saying he's
Oh,
wrong?
it's a Rick bomb. Oh, okay. Well, I bow down and yes.
All right. Ben,
Yeah.
what about you, Ben?
We gotta appreciate Josh Gaddis now.
Exactly.
I mean, everyone knows me, Wolverine Corner, pretty much everyone on the podcast. We all are rocking our MAGA hats right now. And I mean, if he's our football coach, couldn't do any worse against Ohio State. So I'm all for it, boys. What about you, Max?
Yeah. We're gonna move on to question number 3 here.
Hey, yo, what's going on? It's Kyle Baskin. I was just wondering if you could choose one player from the Michigan football team next season that you think could have a breakout year and why you think so. Thank you.
Thank you for Carol Baskin for the question. And by the way, Carol, I know that you are innocent, so don't worry.
Ron.
Anyways, who do I think is going to break out for Michigan football this year? I think that's going to be Mike Sanders still. I think he's going to be a beast this year. I think he's going to be Michigan's third leading receiver, probably behind Nico and Ronnie Bell. And I think that, however, he only had 8 catches last year. I get that, but he was a true freshman. The coaches loved and raved about him all year long. And on those 8 balls that he caught last year, he averaged, I believe, 18 yards a catch. So he's going to be a big play threat. He's fast as hell, and I think he's going to break out for Michigan next year.
All right, so I think my breakout player is Dax Hill. And so last year he had 36 total tackles, 1 interception, and 3 passes defensed as a freshman on this defense, on a defense quite complex actually. And I see him picking up more of like a Josh Metellus role, except for doing it better. I think there's nowhere to go but up. And as a full-time starter, I think that he's going to make that jump.
My answer is, well, I don't know if this is really what he was looking for, but I think Dylan McCaffrey. I mean, when he's the starter this year, obviously he's going to have a lot more opportunity than last year, and I think he's going to really make the most of it. I think he's going to have a better year than Shea did both of his years, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what he can do.
Wait, so is Dylan McCaffrey? Would you consider him a dark horse Heisman candidate?
Oh my God!
No.
Do not give them bulletin board material.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Jacob, go ahead.
Well, what I'm gonna say now, he was already pretty good last year. I'm gonna say Aiden Hutchinson. He's coming back for his junior year. He was, he's one of the top guys on the line last year, but he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a monster next year. he'll be terrorizing lines. And, I'm excited to see him get to the QB a lot more, stop these run plays. He's going to be one of the top interior. He's going to be one of the top defensive linemen in the Big Ten or even in the nation, in my opinion, next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really good one. I agree with everyone here. I think all four of those players have a really good chance of breaking out. Let's move on to our next question.
Hey, it's LeBron again from Huntsville, Michigan. Calling, wondering, is Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat if he wins less than 9 games this season? Thank you.
Thank you to LeBron from Michigan. I know you asked a question on the first podcast, so thanks for submitting again. Is Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat if he wins less than 9 games? Ryan, go ahead.
To be completely honest with you, I do not think he is, because then it would just be like an aberration of a year. I think that he's a proven consistent winner, even though he doesn't win the Ohio State games like we want him to. And I think that he may not exactly be like up to the fans' expectations, but I don't think that less than 9 games is gonna put him on the hot seat next year.
Yeah. Well, I can agree with. Like when it comes to if he goes 8-4 next year, I think, in my personal opinion, yes, I think he should be put on the hot seat, but I don't think he would if that actually becomes the actual how the season goes. So I do believe we'll have him for at least 2 more years. But I mean, like, if you keep losing to Ohio State, there's only so much losing we can take before we realize we probably need a new guy.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm gonna say, kind of like Jacob said, probably not, but he probably should be. With that said, I think when Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan, whether that's in 2 years or in 10 years, I think it'll be on his own terms. I think Jim Harbaugh will walk away before he is ever fired.
Well, I don't agree with that, honestly. But if he wins less than 9 games, I mean, obviously if he doesn't even make a bowl game, it's a lot different. It doesn't really specify how many games he wins. But I'd say if he goes 8-4, there will definitely be talk. I don't know. I don't see him. He definitely will get at least 2 more years. But if, let's say, he wins less than 9 games for the next 2 years, I don't think they'd keep him, if I'm being honest.
When it comes to 8-4, I think who those losses are to may depend on how, like, if they lose if they lose to Ball State, like if they get upset by some group of 5 team in the non-conference schedule, that might be like, really, like that's just like if it's to like, if it's to Ohio State, if it's to Penn State, if it's to Wisconsin, that's kind of a different story.
Yeah, and it's also like how you lose. I mean, you can lose 4 really close games to good teams, or you can get blown out by 65 points. I mean, the record isn't the only thing you can look at when deciding whether to keep
blown out by 65.
Go.
Blown out by 65 points. Are you implying that next year in Columbus we're going to lose by 65? Because we might.
Yeah, I could see it being like I don't know, 100-35. For being
definitely
honest.
possible.
Giving Justin Fields an extra year.
They might hit triple digits.
Anyways, let's move on to.
Hey, but Don Brown would lose. But Don Brown would lose sleep over that.
Oh no! All right, moving on to our last question here.
Hey, this is Jake from KY on Twitter. I'd rather not say where I'm from. And my question is this. If Addison Easterling and Isaiah Livers were both standing in front of you and you had the option to kiss one on the mouth, which one would you choose and why? Thanks. And that's for Wolverine Corner, by the way.
Thank you so much, Jake, for that question. And I am honored to have a question specifically asked for me. So again, thank you. As a pro Livers and a pro Addison Ray podcast, we're just going to let the listeners come to their own conclusions on that one, because I think you all know the answer. Anyone else want to chime in on this one?
No. I wouldn't say we're pro Addison Ray. I mean, I'm not a big fan, if I'm being honest, but I know that might.
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is this a pro Addison Ray Because if it's not a pro Addison Rae podcast, then I know who I'm going with too. So I think we can just leave it at that.
Ryan or Jacob, you got anything to add to this?
No
No.
comment.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. We love hearing from all you guys. And like I said, if we didn't get to your question this week, I promise it'll be on next week's show. Moving on here, we wanted to move away from Michigan really quickly and talk about something non-sports related. So we all decided to put a list of our top 3 favorite TV shows together and why they're so elite in our opinion. We didn't compare lists beforehand, so if there's any repeats, that must mean the show's pretty darn good. So, Ben, why don't you start us off with your top 3 favorite TV shows of all time?
Okay, coming in at number 1. I hope we have a lot of agreement on this. They better, if you've seen it, they better be in your top 3. It's Breaking Bad.
Absolutely.
I'd say, yeah. I don't see any L's for that one. Honestly, I think that's a lot of people's favorite. Second one, this one, it's from my childhood, which is not that long ago, but Zach and Cody, specifically specifically the not when they went on like the boat thing, the part before that. And third, my girl Olivia Rodrigo stars on it. It's called the High School Musical series. I don't actually think that's what it's called, but that show is different. And if a girl asks you to watch that with her, you're in. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, Ryan, go ahead. What are yours?
Not gonna lie, my top 3 TV shows are completely different than that. My number 3 is a classic. It is Friends, and I think that anyone that's seen that show,
Overrated.
There's gags.
it's not overrated. It's
Overrated.
definitely a
not
great
that funny.
show. I think that show is hilarious, and if you don't get the jokes, then that's your own problem.
I think if you don't get the jokes, you're funny.
Okay. My number 2 show is Designated Survivor. This is much less of a comedy. This one is actually more of a drama. And it is a must-watch for anyone that likes political stuff, for anyone that likes dramas. It is a must-watch. It has Kiefer Sutherland, and he plays the new president just after a Capitol bombing with everyone inside of the Capitol. Interesting show. I think that you should definitely watch it if you like politics and problem solving. And of course, my number 1 is The Office, which is my favorite show of all time. I used to binge that show all the time, and Michael Scott is to this day one of my favorite characters of all time in any TV show.
Yeah, no disagreement over here. That's the GOAT show right there. Anyways, Jacob, what are you thinking for your list?
Well, I got The Office as my top show. Then I have Breaking Bad, and then I actually have The Simpsons at number 3. The Simpsons is just, it's one of the longest running shows of all time. It's just got, it's got some of these just little subtle things in there that are just great, in my opinion. There's so many, they're like all the characters are just so unique and different, and it's just it's funny, it's classic, and it's just nice.
My top 3 are, you've definitely heard a couple of these already. Number 3, I have Breaking Bad as my third. I was having a hard time with this one, with this list. But Breaking Bad, if you haven't seen it, I'm shocked at how many times I read through Twitter and someone's tweeting about they finally made it to watch Breaking Bad, and I'm like, where the hell were you the last however many years? So yeah, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, watch it. It's probably too low on my list, but it's fantastic. Number 2, I doubt any of you guys have seen it, but it's Sons of Anarchy is number 2 on my list. I fucking love that show. It's so good. It's basically about a motorcycle club. They're pretty much a gang, but I think that show, I have watched it from start to finish now 3 or 4 times. It's so good. It's a drama. It's got some violence in it, but it's got incredible storylines, really good character development, and I absolutely love that show. Number 1, The Office, obviously. I could probably quote every single line from that show if I wanted to, every episode. It's the best comedy of all time, and in my opinion, it's by far the best show of all time. So those are all of our lists. If you love or hate our lists, just let us know. Tweet at us. We'd love to hear your list and your feedback and your opinion on all of those. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
If you don't like Breaking Bad, say my name. That's all I have to say.
I really hope the listeners get that reference.
I hope you do.
Next is our interview with a man that needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. He's an OG of Michigan Twitter. He's a man that has takes almost as good as mine, and he's a guy that has catfished me for the last 4 or 5 years. So enjoy our interview with Michigan Twitter legend, JDW, Mr. Meta Wooten Peace. We would like to welcome Meta Wooten Peace onto the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. For the listeners who have been living under a rock and don't know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you are a Michigan fan?
So I lived in Ann Arbor for most of my life, and my parents both went to the university, both spent time working at the university. So I grew up going to games. Went to my first football game when I was 8, Michigan versus Houston. First basketball game, I think I went to all the games for the 04 NIT run. So,
oh boy.
Ever since then, just love Michigan football and basketball ever since. And
that 04 NIT run, I mean, who can forget? Am I right?
Yeah.
I can't remember, actually, considering I was 1 year old. But
anyways,
during that run? Serious question.
Ben, were you in diapers during that run?
Yeah. I mean, I was 1 year old. But,
oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyways, so a lot of the people I mentioned in the intro to this that you've been catfishing me for the last 4 or 5 years, which is a completely true story. I was wondering if you wanted to tell that story, where the hell all that came from.
Yeah, I think what really happened is you catfished yourself.
True.
Max didn't realize that I was the person that I kept changing my picture to. He thought I was Tanner Wooten's brother because I said on Twitter that I was Tanner's brother just because we have the same last name. And then eventually it dawned on him that I was the person in my profile pictures and not some random person I just kept changing it to.
Yeah. So over the last couple of years on Michigan Twitter, I've obviously followed you for a couple of years now, and I've followed Tanner as well. And I don't remember what the tweet was or even when it was sent, but there was something along the.
It's 2 years ago, if not more.
Okay, Jesus. So it was something along the lines of where I don't know if you said something about a family reunion or something along the lines, but it made me think that you two were related. And I knew what Tanner had looked like because, he was in his profile picture, and I think he shared videos of stuff like that of himself. So I knew what he looked like. And then I saw the profile picture of you where there was just some random black guy. And I was like, well, that obviously has to be an inside joke. That can't be you. Because if you're related to Tanner's very white. So it can't be you. So it didn't, I don't think I realized it until we added you to the main Michigan group chat, a month ago or so. And that was when I finally found out that no, you were in fact the person in your Twitter profile picture. So yeah, I guess you could say that, maybe I got catfished, maybe I catfished myself, but it took me a solid 4 years to realize that you are, in fact, the random black guy that's in all of your Twitter pictures.
That's just it's what it is.
Yeah. All right, Ben, go ahead. Do you have any? You want to get going in this interview?
Yeah.
right.
Justin, obviously you've been a fan for many years. What is your favorite Michigan game that you've ever been to? It doesn't really matter the sport. Just what's your favorite game?
Favorite game. See, here's my thing is that I always miss going to the great basketball games. I'm always at really, really boring basketball games, even if they've been good. Except for that, okay, I went to the Michigan Syracuse game in the Final Four, but that had to be the most boring big Michigan game in the history of my fandom. So I can't do basketball. I say for probably just Notre Dame under the lights the first time was probably.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my, that's a great one. Would you say you're more of a football or basketball fan, Justin?
Depends on the time of year you ask me that, but I'd probably lean football just a little bit.
So, all right, here's here's a basketball question for you. We've discussed this on the pod a little bit between all of us, and I just wanted to get your take. So let's say 5-6 years down the road, when it's all said and done, out of this year's 2020 Michigan basketball recruiting class, out of the four, Jace Howard, Terrence Williams, Hunter Dickinson, and Zeb Jackson, who do you think we're going to look back on and we're going to say that person had the best Michigan career out of those four?
Great question. I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit and say it's going to be Terrence Williams. I think the way he plays is like perfect for being a Big Ten 4. You know, he's doesn't have a bunch of NBA upside, but he's obviously super skilled. And, you know, when he's a junior or senior, I could see him having the type of impact that like Lamar Stevens or Juwan Morgan from Indiana would have. So that's going to be my take. I'm going to stay with Terrence Williams.
Listen, if we end up getting Lamar Stevens out of Terrence Williams, I think we're going to be pretty damn pleased. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
If you could choose who the next season's head basketball coach would be, would you rather have John Beilein or Juwan Howard?
Now I think you just have to say Juwan. I mean, like, they're all Juwan's players now. You've seen the recruiting momentum that he's made. I mean, obviously, you know, he hasn't built what John Beilein is and, like, hasn't become the coach that John Beilein is. But from 1 year, we've seen a lot from Coach Howard. So it doesn't make sense to throw it away when we're clearly on a good path.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that really quick. So since you've been so ingrained in Michigan for the last, you know, however many years of your life, just talk about, like, do you remember where you were when you found out that John Beilein was taking that Cavs job? And, like, what was your reaction and stuff? Because
So what happened was, so I was visiting my girlfriend in Chicago, actually. And I was staying at her place. And my thing is, like, I love to be, like, the first person to, like, get news and share it with other people. So because, like, I was in Chicago, like, I was an hour behind, you know, almost everyone I know. And so I actually woke up to the text from a friend, and I was just like, no way, like, this is true. And, like, you know, like, people had all, like, been tweeting about it for a while, and I'm just like, holy, you know, expletive, like, it's insane.
Yeah. I was the same. I had slept in that day. I remember I picked up my phone when I woke up, and, like, I don't even remember how many like, every single one of my friends texted me. I didn't believe, even like when you read the text from 20 different people, like, you still want to get on Twitter just to see, like, a verified person that, like, confirmed that. It was like, I literally felt like I was, like, getting just pranked by, like, literally every single one of my friends until I logged onto Twitter, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, never mind, it's true.
Yeah.
When I got the news, I was in my math class, my first hour class. I was just grinding out some, I think it was, what was it? I think it was Algebra 2. I was grinding out some Algebra 2.
Those were the days,
notification on my phone. And yeah, me and my friend, I mean, tears were nearly shed. If we were not in public, tears probably would have been shed. I'm going to be honest. But
I think I was too shocked to get, like, emotional. Like, I don't think I was emotional until, like, 4 or 5 hours later. And then I was like, I don't know. It was just a weird range of emotions. It's like, I really did feel happy for him at the time too. It was like, he clearly wanted to do it, and it felt like just the timing was so weird that, I don't know. I'm still shocked. Honest to God, to this day, I thought John Beilein was going to retire as Michigan's basketball coach.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And, you know, it was almost to the magnitude of something when, like a major celebrity dies, like when you have, like, something like Kobe dying or, like, Michael Jackson dying, like, you don't feel sad at first, you just, like, feel, like, shock and denial, and then you don't really feel the emotions until
and I know that there's probably not going to be any non-Michigan fans listening to this, but if there are any, you probably think it's ridiculous that we're comparing John Beilein taking the Cavs job to, like, this big-time celebrity dying. But, like, that was true, 100%. It was so weird. And, I'll definitely never forget that. Ben, let's get us moving here.
Shifting away from basketball a little bit, would you blame Don Brown or Jim Harbaugh more for Michigan's big game struggles?
Oh, that's a great question. I think probably more so Jim. I mean, I think eventually, like it all comes to the head coach, and he'd be responsible if he'd get the most credit if we were winning all those big games. So he has to take all the blame for losing those big games. I think maybe if you're talking about just Ohio State games, maybe Don Brown deserves a lot more blame. But I think if you're looking overall, it's Jim's team. He's the head coach. It's his responsibility to sort of mentally prepare his teams for a lot of these games. And honestly, I think that's probably the biggest setback, just like being mentally prepared and the mental toughness about that. I don't know if you guys saw the interview from Ambry Thomas where he basically said like we didn't really do a really good job of holding each other accountable when we made mistakes, and player leadership within the team was often poor, at least like that's what he seemed to imply. And then I was just reading an article from Isaiah Hole today that was talking about that and basically said like the coaches are aware that like mental toughness and team leadership is lacking, and so they're trying to fix that. So you can blame Don Brown for a lot of scheme issues that have been exploited by Ryan Day over and over again, but eventually, ultimately it all comes down to Jim Harbaugh.
Yep, completely agree. All right, Justin. I have 7 true or false questions. I'm going to run through really quickly. Just tell me true or false. If you want to expand on it, feel free. But first one, true or false, Michigan wins the national title in 2014 if Mitch McGary stays healthy and if he stays off the weed.
Definitely true. I mean, like, there's nothing. We would have probably run through the tournament with Mitch McGary. Like,
I agree.
The weakest spot there. Mitch was, great rebounder. Had a nice mid-range. Could score anytime he went when he was within 5 feet of the basket. So I mean, I think we take care of everyone in that tournament.
Agreed. That Kentucky game probably doesn't come down to the last shot if we have McGary in that game. So
not at all.
All right, number 2, Michigan beats Ohio State in the next 3 seasons. True or false?
I mean, I'm gonna have to say false. I mean, based on how everything has gone in the last like decade or so, I can never really predict Ohio State losing to Michigan until I see it. So and based on the way they've been recruiting too, so I'm just gonna have to say false with that one.
All right, Jim Harbaugh is Michigan's head coach in 5 seasons.
In 5 seasons, ooh, I'm gonna go true with that one. I think he only, he has 2 more years left on this contract, and then he's probably going to end up signing another one. And I have a hard time seeing him signing a contract that's less than three years and like not, and I would see him wanting to like stay all the way through whatever his next contract at Michigan would be. So, I'll say he's still here in 5 years. I think with him, he's going to be here as long as he wants to be, and I would assume that the way Michigan's making money with him and the way there's so few coaches that would probably take the Michigan job with any qualified experience, I would bet Jim will be here for probably another 5 years or so.
So you don't want Matt Campbell then, is what you're saying?
I definitely don't want Matt Campbell, that's for sure.
All right, next one. Mel Tucker is Michigan State's head coach in 5 seasons.
I'm gonna probably say false, just because, and that's purely just because like he's never been at one job longer than 3 years. I mean, this is of the ones you've asked for, this is the one I'm least confident in, just cause, and I'm purely just basing that off his history. But yeah, I'll say I'll say he's never been there anywhere longer than 3 years.
Yeah, Michigan State fans are going to clip that soundbite and just roast you on Twitter later. I hope you know that.
Yeah, I know.
As long as you're prepared for it. Okay, Joe Milton is Michigan's starting quarterback next season.
False. Yeah,
Man.
I think it'll be Dylan McCaffrey.
Well, we all agree on that one. All right, Juwan Howard wins a natty at Michigan at some point.
I'll go out on a limb and say true. I think he's, obviously a great recruiter. He's has tremendous amount of respect from everyone in the basketball community, and that goes from just people, high school coaches in Chicago, to people like LeBron. And as cliche as to say, there really doesn't seem like there's anyone that has anything bad to say about him, and just everyone that knows him seems to love him. And he just showed tremendous improvement over the course of his first season. It really just seems like the arrow's pointing straight up for him, and he knows everything that's necessary to create a winning locker room in Michigan. I mean, we were one recruit away from having possibly the best roster in the country next year, but we all know how that ended up. So I think once you give Juwan more and more time, he'll easily be able to create a winning team that brings home the championship.
For sure. I think it's interesting to hear you, say how successful of a first season you had, because I keep hearing from a certain fan base that, we took 9th in the Big Ten last year, so it was definitely a failure. But moving on, true or false, Isaiah Livers will be playing in the Maize.
Regular season conference standings like Michigan State does.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. All right,
Like,
Isaiah Livers will be back playing at Michigan next season. True or false?
That's true. That's definitely true. I mean, I just think for him, he was a fringe guy whose two best assets that would have helped his draft stock would have been one, like his ability to work out and do a combine, and obviously that can't happen. And then they're probably seeing something. They're doing something like this on Skype or Zoom, whatever, and that'd be interviews would be the second thing. Yeah, but I would think they, would probably would have preferred and would evaluate him better in an interview setting, and it was live. And this, everyone, has seen, he's a really good guy, really likable, like the type of guy that any NBA team would want from a personality standpoint. So.
For sure. We actually got two more things here. I wanted to just get I know it's May 3rd when we are recording this, and it's, we're in the middle of quarantine. So in my opinion, it's not too early to talk about this, but I want to get your Michigan football record prediction for next season. I have the schedule in front of me. I don't know if you know the schedule, really well off the top of your head, but what are we looking at next season record for Michigan football?
I'm thinking 10-2. Yeah, that's what I feel like. Probably definitely lost to Ohio State, and then I think Washington is actually lost to. That's definitely a game that we shouldn't lose, considering that they have a head coaching change, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback too. But I'm not really optimistic with how Michigan opens the season. We've seen, especially in the last 2 years and Jim Harbaugh's first year, that the teams have opened really sloppily in their first game, and I don't really see that changing with a new quarterback and 4 new offensive line starters. Another thing is that it's been really hard for Big Ten teams, especially Michigan, to win on the West Coast. And maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Michigan has won a game in the in Pac-12 countries since the '98 Rose Bowl with Charles Woodson.
Wow.
So that's going to be a really hard streak to break. It's definitely a winnable game, but I just, based on how Harbaugh's teams have started the season and how difficult it is for Michigan to win out west. I'm picking that as a loss, and then 10 straight wins, and then another loss. So we bookend the season with 2 losses.
Yes. So looking at the schedule next year, Michigan's got 5 road games. They actually have a pretty favorable schedule. They got Wisconsin and Penn State both at home. If they can find a way to win at Washington, your other road games are Michigan State. They should be able to handle that one. They got Minnesota on the road, which a lot of people are predicting a loss there. But again, when you look at pure talent-wise, they will be the more talented team. And then they got Rutgers and Ohio State on the road. So if they can win at Washington, they can definitely rattle off a lot of wins in a row. So I can definitely see a 10-2, 11-1 type season.
Yeah. I think getting over Washington will be super important. If we win at Washington, I'm going to feel really, really confident about winning at Minnesota, and then Rutgers and Michigan State. I'm not worried about that, and then any of the home games, I'm not worried about any of those either. But
for sure,
getting over Washington's going to be pretty important. If they don't, then I'm going to be a little more nervous with Minnesota, but I'm still going to project that as a win because I do think that Jim Harbaugh teams in October really know how to do it. So
earlier in our podcast, we're going to edit this into our podcast and it's going to release tomorrow. We all talked about our top 3 favorite TV shows of all time. So since you're here, we wanted to ask you, what are your favorite 3 TV shows of all time?
Ooh, yeah. So I'd say one for sure has got to be South Park. I mean, it's just an incredible show. It's been running for upwards of 20 years, and it seems like every episode I managed to get like at least a few like really, really good laughs at. It satirizes everything. It's honestly, all time great of mine. So I think that's got to be number 1. Number 2, I think I would say Breaking Bad. I mean, that's just everyone loves that show. Like they built up to everything perfectly. It ended nicely. Just everything about it's so well done. Like there's a reason why everyone loves that show. And then 3, I probably have to say Stranger Things. Just like, I love all the characters. It's got a nice balance of action, drama, humor to it. It's so well done for a show that like centers around people that are really, really young. It's action packed, and it isn't as heavy as a lot of like really popular dramas like Breaking Bad and like The Wire and Game of Thrones and such. And then it was just great all around great show.
Yeah, tell me about The Wire. I've had a couple people that have told me to watch that recently. Is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, The Wire is good. I actually just like got into it. It was like one of my quarantine shows, and I just finished it like a couple of weeks ago. Great show. It's just like very, very like heavy. A lot of like it centers around like gang violence and drug dealing. There's like lots of gruesome death in it, but like there's so many great characters in it. The plots are really, really well done. The characters are really well developed. I think that was like Michael B. Jordan's like first major acting debut. Like he's a teenager in the show. Idris Elba's like in his like 20s or maybe like his early 30s when he's in the show, and his role is played really, really well. It's really, really good show. You can sort of handle how like heavy and gory and like a lot of the more like darker, sad topics that it centers around.
And I wanted to get your take on, I think we showed you Ben's list of his top favorite shows. He had High School Musical and The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody on
Those are
his
my
list.
number ones. First, my number 1 is Breaking Bad. My number 2 is Zach and Cody because that was my favorite show growing up. Yeah. And number 3, High School Musical, the series. And if anyone who's trying to tell me that it's not a top 3 definitely hasn't seen it. I know Max hasn't seen it. You probably haven't seen it either. So I mean, before you slander it, I feel like you should give it a watch.
All right.
What do you think about that, Justin?
So Zach and Cody is good. I don't know if it's second best show of all time.
I say great. I use the word great, but I don't know. I think it's definitely not like the second best show of all time, but
it's on your
really
list.
remember that. No, but like I just remember it. It's my second favorite show of all time because I just remember it so fondly. I just remember sitting there, my little 8-year-old self watching that thing, and I was laughing my eyes out.
All right, Justin. I told you I was going to get you out of here in like 15 minutes, and we're like past the 25-minute mark here. So I am officially going to get you out of here. Thank you so much for stopping in. We appreciate it. We definitely want to have you back on. Not when we're getting like famous athletes on here, we'll probably not have you on those podcasts. But you're always a good backup plan. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're our first choice. I promise. So we do appreciate you stopping on, and stay safe, and we really appreciate it.
All right, perfect. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Perfect.
Thanks so much for Meta Wooten Peace for dropping in and talking to us. We really appreciate it. It's always a fun conversation with him. Now, moving on, just like in episode 1, we're going to close this episode with some unpopular opinions. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
So my unpopular opinion is that I believe that Joe Milton will win the starting quarterback job at Michigan next year. And I think that because even though he's not especially mobile, he has incredible size for the quarterback position. He's almost 6'6" and is a massive human. That is going to help him, first of all, see over the defense, and second of all, that's going to help him like place the football wherever he wants to place it. He has the arm to do that too, and whatever he lacks in his running game, his arm is going to make up for it. If people have seen the Instagram video, his arm is incredible. Like, he reminds me of Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. He is an incredible thrower, and I believe that that's going to really boost his game.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I think you're selling him a little bit short on his mobility. No, he's not. He's not McCaffrey speed. He's not that agile, but I think Milton can run a little bit. I think he's shown that in his limited time.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of disagree. When people firstly, I think a lot of people forget that McCaffrey's 6'5", 220. I mean, obviously he's skinnier than Milton, but I mean he's still a big dude, a lot taller than Shea, a lot bigger than Shea overall, and yeah, I don't think when people see the Instagram videos, he can throw far. I don't think that translates to accuracy at all. I mean, yeah, I don't see him starting, but obviously it's your opinion.
Yeah, we can have this debate, all day long if we want to. I think this one's so tough for me since I'm a believer in McCaffrey, and I think he's going to be that dude next year. I think when people hear someone say, "Oh, I think McCaffrey's going to start next year," they automatically be like, "Oh, you think Joe Milton sucks?" Like, that's not what we're saying here. I think Joe Milton's such an interesting prospect. I think his ceiling can be like a Cam Newton, Ben Roethlisberger type, like freakishly big, semi-athletic quarterback. But I think his floor is very low. We haven't seen it. We don't know if he's accurate. We don't know if he's capable of putting touch on the football. So I know everyone wants to, think that this guy has such a high ceiling, but they don't want to necessarily admit that he probably has a low floor as well.
All right, Jacob, you want to go next, or you want me to?
Oh, you go ahead.
Some people might agree with this, some people might not, but I think Don Brown should have been gone, and I think the sooner he's let go, the better for Michigan. And yeah, that's my opinion. What do you guys think?
Like when it comes to Don Brown, when you can't just fire defensive coordinator, who? Who's gonna do better? Who's gonna do a better job than what Don Brown is doing? It's just that's part of the reason why firing Harbaugh is such a sketchy thing. When you fire a coach, you want to hire someone who's going to do a better job. When you fire anyone, you fire them for the purpose because you think you can find someone who's doing better. So that's the main issue I have, because Michigan's defenses are consistently good. It's just against Ohio State.
I honestly don't agree with that. I think Michigan's defense they are statistically good if you just look at how they do per game against all teams. But if you look at how they do against top 25 opponents, it's not good. I think you could find a much better guy.
Yeah, I think with Don Brown, God, this is another just one of those extremely complicated and complex questions. This year is so important to Don Brown. 2 years ago, when Michigan got exposed against Ohio State for the first time, Don Brown did make a lot of adjustments that offseason, and Michigan did have a different defense last season. Michigan did run more zone. They did run less man-to-man. However, in crunch time, when it mattered, it looked like the same old Don Brown. So with this season, they got some studs on the field at defense. Everyone from Dax Hill to Ambry to Hutchinson to Cam McGrone. They have some incredible speed and incredible talent this year on defense, just like they do every year. And I think this season is just going to be very important to see. Has Don Brown evolved enough as a coach to continue coaching at Michigan? And if he hasn't, I believe this is going to be Don Brown's last year.
All right, I guess that'll go into mine. This one's probably hotter than both of those. Personally, I don't think Zach Charbonnet is going to do better next year than what he did his true freshman year. And my explanation for that is just in his 2 words, Chris Evans. Just the guy is going to be a 5th-year senior. He's had an extra year to work out and do his own thing while he was suspended. So he's going to be, he's always been a great running back since he ever got here. So I think we'll be seeing Chris Evans in the starting running back job with Charbonnet taking a back seat.
Yeah, it's going to be the running back depth next season is going to be just fascinating to see how that evolves. Haskins is back. Charbonnet's there. Chris Evans is there. I have no idea how the carries are going to shake out. I really don't. I want to agree with you. I still think they might use Chris Evans just a little bit differently where you have to figure out a way to get everyone the ball. And that includes Charbonnet. And I feel like that means you're going to see Chris Evans more as a third down type back, more of a receiving back. But I could be wrong. He could start day one as your day one running back. And if that's the case, then, Charbonnet's carries will go down.
Speed and space.
Absolutely. So we'll move. That makes me so. Speed and space thing was so cringy last year. I'm sorry. So moving on to my unpopular opinion, and we can debate this afterwards, but I think that Juwan, when it's all said and done, is going to have a better career at Michigan than John Beilein did. And the reason I believe that is I just feel like, number one, Beilein laid the foundation for him, both talent-wise, both success-wise, and also culture-wise. If Juwan is able to continue to get top 100 players at a rate that he did in his first year, then I think Michigan is just a better basketball brand right now than they were at the majority of John Beilein's time here. I think Juwan's going to have it easier. But I think when it's all said and done, he's going to have more wins, and I think he's going to win a national title too, which in my opinion would put him above John Beilein.
Well, when it comes to that, it's a bit too early into his tenure at Michigan for me to have a real solid look at what I think his whole career is going to be. That depends on how long he stays. He could find maybe an NBA job, who knows? But like he's recruiting at a higher level than Beilein, but for him to say he's better than Beilein, I think. If he wins a national championship, that's an automatic. Yep, you're better, because Beilein never did that. He got to the championship game twice, didn't win either. Louisville cheated, but that got vacated. But just for me to comfortably say that, he's gonna have to do that, or he's gonna have to stay a long time, such as Beilein, and make a couple Final Fours as well. So I think that's something right now that'll be a couple years down the road. That's something you can definitely revisit. And we'll be like, is he already, or is he possibly going to catch him? So,
and I wanted to say, you mentioned something about how Juwan could possibly go to the NBA in the future. Sure, it's a possibility. He's already coached there, but I don't see that. I think Michigan is a top 10 basketball job right now to be a head coach at. And I think as Juwan continues to get the talent and win games, I think it's going to get even higher than that. You don't see people bolting to the NBA from the college ranks very often. And what I mean is you don't see that from big schools. Tom Izzo never made that jump, right? Coach K never made that jump. Roy Williams never made that jump. Bill Self. I could go on and on. These coaches have been at their schools for a long time without really ever feeling the need to jump to the NBA. And I think that Juwan Howard's going to be another one of those guys that he's at his dream job, and I don't see him leaving.
Also, I think a important point is just that where John Beilein took over compared to where Juwan Howard took over. I mean, it's essentially incomparable. Like if John Beilein took over now, I mean, it's hard to say that like he wouldn't have won a national championship if he started with this type of talent. But when you build it from the ground up like Beilein did, I think that's the part of him that I think of so fondly. It's just how he came here and just kind of built the program himself.
Oh, for sure. I think John Beilein will always be remembered so fondly by Michigan fans. I mean, hell, I remember the morning that I found out that he took the job. Like, I was like, it was straight up depression. Like, I'm not trying to exaggerate here, but I was shocked. I never in a million years did I ever think that he would leave at that time. And that kind of came out of nowhere. And John Beilein is, I mean, hell, even when he was on BTN this year doing commentary, how many Michigan fans just tuned in just to watch that and tweet about it? Michigan fans love him. He will be remembered just very, just in a very high regard by pretty much everybody. But that doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that when it's all said and done in 20 years or 25 years, I just feel like Juwan's going to be, the coach with more accolades.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I mean, Beilein, I get you could. I mean, he's probably the best coach Michigan basketball's ever had. I mean, him and Steve Fisher, maybe not really. Well, I don't like Fisher. Yeah, he won the national championship.
No, John Beilein's the best.
I mean, that wasn't even his team that won the. Correct. He was an assistant coach. The coach got fired right before the tournament because I believe he had like some secret deal in place. And Bo fired him because he was the athletic director at the time and the football coach, which is kind of funny. Fisher goes on this nice run. They beat Seton Hall. They win the national championship. He stays a little while longer, gets the Fab Five in. Fab Five leaves, great. But like Beilein was there for a decade and a half. He was there for a long time. So like he has the most wins in program history. So I believe he's the best coach they've ever had. But Juwan, he's going to have to stay a similar amount of time, and he's going to have to make some Final Fours and consistently make and win in the tournament for me to be convinced that he's the best coach.
You're going to be convinced real soon because Michigan's going to win the Natty next year. So
no, that's I hope no one screen grabs that.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope everyone screen grabs that.
Oh boy.
Hey,
is that unbiased? You'd say that's unbiased?
That is a Wolverine corner guarantee.
Oh God,
we haven't gotten one of those in a while.
Well, there's your first podcast one. Anyone else have anything to add to Unpopular Opinions?
Nope.
We all good? All right, cool. With those unpopular opinions, episode 2 will come to a close. Thanks to everybody for tuning into the podcast today. If you're listening on Apple, please be sure to subscribe to the pod and give us a 5-star rating. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow us and subscribe to the pod on there. And if you're a YouTube listener, like the video and subscribe to B Coop's YouTube channel. Thanks to Meta Woot and Peace for stopping in. We really hope we can have him back on soon. And we're going to send you off today with a song. It's called Take Your Time by the Proletarians. I hope everyone stays safe out there. Please wash your hands and practice social distancing. And most importantly, remember, just beat Ohio State.
She said it's 1:30 a.m. Tell me what you call for. I just need somebody real to tell me what it's all for. You know what you stand for, you know what you fall for. Said you don't believe in me, well that's your son called for. These things take time, you just gotta trust me. You got reason to doubt everybody here but me. Said I'm taking off here, all they do is judge me. She told me I was childish, I told her she was lovely, and then she said